It's been a long time since my initial review dunking on Fionn for being so ineffective, and he must have taken that to heart because since then he's gotten enough buffs to make Artoria blush. Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here, with a Servant Spotlight update for the former Rare Mana Prism mascot himself, Fionn. Since his release, he's received not one, not two, but 3 upgrades, and with him currently on rate up, I think it's about time that we give him another look. So if you're looking forward to hearing my take on the new and improved Fionn, please make sure to click that like button, subscribe, and ring my bell so that you can catch all these Servant Spotlights as they go up, and it also helps out the channel tremendously. And if there are any other servants you'd like to see me take another look at, please let me know in the comments down below. Now getting back to Fionn, you'll be happy to know that as of this most recent event, all of Fionn's interludes are now available in NA, so you can work on getting him to maximum power as soon as you roll him. As for what those buffs are, first and foremost, his first skill can be upgraded to Clairvoyance Beauty rank B++, which will increase the star rate buff from 38% to 50%, and it makes it party-wide instead of just a self-buff. But more importantly, it also adds the effect of increasing the party's NP gain rate by 30%. Most recently, Fionn also received a buff to his second skill, transforming it into Magnificence Free Spirit rank A. This skill now has the added effect of charging Fionn's NP gauge by 30%, as well as significantly reducing the cooldown. And finally, Fionn has an interlude available for his Noble Phantasm, Mak On Lun, which increases the damage modifier to between 600 and 900% depending on NP level. When it comes to the effectiveness of a servant, one of the most important things to consider about their kits is how much synergy there is between the different skills. While Fionn's buffs may not be as flashy and eye-popping as some of the other interludes, what they do is add a much needed element of synergy and consistency to his initially awkward skill set. The buff to Clairvoyance is an excellent upgrade because it turns a skill that was initially niche and underwhelming into a strong team-wide buff. This gives Fionn good utility in arts teams, both NP focused and crit based, since he can act as an NP battery for the team or enable a ton of star generating for more consistent crits. But even more importantly, it pairs very well with the buff to his second skill, which now gives him a flat 30% NP charge. Naturally, a flat NP charge is great for farmers, and it suits Fionn's AoE Noble Phantasm perfectly. With this skill, he's now able to easily clear waves on turn 1 without the need for much setup. Not only that, but when combined with the large NP gain boost from his first skill and the arts buff on his third skill, Fionn now has enough NP gain built into his kit to loop his Noble Phantasm fairly easily, and he can spam it out in more offensive teams. And that Noble Phantasm itself has been upgraded significantly since release to hit just a bit harder. Whereas it was one of the weakest NPs around earlier, it's now more in line with the average power level for an AoE Lancer. In my original spotlight for Fionn, my biggest complaints about him were his lack of a niche, his low damage, and the fact that his kit didn't have any rhyme or reason to it. He had an underwhelming star generating skill that would be better suited on a quick assassin, he had a taunt and an evade despite not being a tank, and he had an art steroid with a long cooldown for a Noble Phantasm that was extremely underpowered. But after 2 years, I think that the buffs that he has received have gone a long way towards fixing these issues. He's now able to use all 3 of his skills simultaneously to set himself up to Noble Phantasm on back-to-back turns, which gives him a niche as a very consistent and dependable farmer. And that's what I mean by synergy. All of his skills now help him with achieving his main role in combat, which is that of a farmer. And not just a farmer, but a self-sufficient arts farmer for Lancers, which is important since most of the other good farming Lancers need to rely on Scotty to loot. And with Castoria releasing in a little over a year, Fionn's role as a 3-turn farmer is only going to get better. But even outside of farming, he still has really good utility for his NP battery and his star generating buff, as well as his taunt and evade, which can come in handy for some boss fights. So he's more than just a farmer, and he can even perform a decent semi-support role in just about any arts team. Although, while these buffs did go a long way towards making his kit much more practical and focused, they didn't do as much to help his damage. Sure, his Noble Phantasm hits harder now, but because his arts buff only lasts one turn, his follow-up NPs are going to be much weaker, and his long cooldowns and lack of a high uptime damage buff mean that his damage outside of his initial Noble Phantasm is going to be very weak. But if you choose to use Fionn, he pairs very well with servants who can buff his NP gain or grant him NP charge, like Helena, Paracelsus, Ryoma, and of course Castoria once she's out. Generally speaking, all of these servants provide Fionn with direct NP charge or a large buff to NP gain, which is exactly what he needs to enable his NP looping. To that extent, I also recommend CEs that give Fionn starting NP charge and that can buff his NP gain or his arts card effectiveness, like Kaleidoscope, Painting Summer, Dive to Blue, and Magical Girl of Sapphire, all of which set him up perfectly for any farming strategy. For command codes, Mages of the Flowers can be useful for getting more NP charge to spam your Noble Phantasm with. Overall, I believe that Fionn has received the most extensive and transformative upgrades of any servant outside of maybe Emiya, and those upgrades do nothing but good for him. Post-interlude Fionn makes for one of the best arts farmers at any rarity. He's easily able to NP loop with minimal support, making him an excellent pickup for players who don't have expensive Scotty setups. His value only increases over time as we get closer to the release of Castoria, making him an excellent investment, and he even has some utility as an art support outside of just farming. He does still have some damage and cooldown issues, and he can be over-reliant on his initial Noble Phantasm spam to get the job done, which does make him not so great in longer fights. But nonetheless, Fionn finally has something that he can excel in, and that something happens to be very important. So his grade gets updated to an A. And I encourage anyone who's in the market for a good farmer, or just needs a Lancer or an Art Servant in general, to roll for Fionn while he's on rate up. Or you can save for Summer Melt, your choice. And those are my thoughts on the Fionn buffs, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know who you'd like me to cover next in this series of Spotlight reevaluations. Also, if you haven't already, please do leave a like if you enjoyed the video, or subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Follow us on Twitter, chill with us on Twitch, and join the party over on our Discord, all linked in the description down below. And until next time, this is Sober Oni, signing out. Later.